Welcome back to another weekly GMBN Tech Show. Coming up on this week's show, we check out some cool stuff we've seen out at the Megavalanche in Alpe d'Huez. There's also that new Mondraker Super Foxy, a brand new Yeti, a heavy hitter, and some cool stuff from Tag Metals. Okay, so first up, let's jump straight into news. And the first one I want to talk about is that brand new Yeti SB 165. This is it on the screen right now. It's got that classic Yeti look to it. It's got 27.5-inch wheels, 165mm travel out back, and it's optimized to use either a large volume air can on there or a coil shock. So this can perform equally as well, depending on what you want to use the bike for. It's got 180mm fork up front, you can see there, it's a Fox 36 on there. And it's got 77-degree seat angle, 63.5-degree head angle, and the sizes from small through to extra large. Now there's various different options available on pricing, so I've got on my screen here some euro pricing and some pound sterling. So euros, the frame cost 4,190 euros. Of course it's a Yeti, it's a super bike in it, so you know it's going to be expensive. And the builds go from 6,090 euros all the way up to 8,690 euros. Expensive, but it's not breaking the 10 grand barrier, which a lot of other bikes currently are. So the fork on there is a 37.5mm offset. It's got 433mm chain stays, and the reach goes from 430 to 505 between small and extra large bikes. I think the thing looks really, really good. It's a heavy hitter. No doubt you can see these being used on some of the World Enduro Series races and all sorts of other stuff. Let us know what you think. Is it better than what they've done with the SB 150 with the 29-inch wheels? And what would you prefer? Would you like one of these, or would you like to bump up a 29 with a slightly bigger fork to make it a similar bike? Let us know in those comments underneath. Okay, next up in news is a brand new Mavic DMax wheel. Now the DMax, of course, is the iconic downhill wheel. The wheel that's pretty much always been yellow or had a yellow hub, one of the other options in there. So this new wheel has a whole bunch of new features. In fact, it has a whole bunch of old features, which makes it quite interesting. So we'll start with an ID360 hub, and that's got 40 teeth on there and 9 degrees between engagement. Of course, that's their ratchet drive system, which is now actually on all of their hubs. So it's really good they've done this from the price point base level all the way up to this level. Now on screen now you can see the wheels, and there's a few cool things about these that's very different to what they've done in the past. So previously, Mavic have been famous for using straight pull spokes. They've actually returned to traditional spokes. It's got regular J-bend spokes, and the reason for that is they are just easily accessible anywhere in the world, wherever you are, any bike resort, you're going to be able to get fresh spokes when you break some, because it's just a matter of when with a downhill wheel. Now something else that's quite interesting is the profile of the rim itself. So the old style rim, as you can see, there's an image on screen here, it's got a slightly rounder profile, and this new one is a bit more of a triangular profile. Obviously that's just to increase the strength against impacts. Now the Mark Wallace's mechanic over on Canyon, he actually said like a downhill rim needs to withstand 6 runs at full chat, basically under a really heavy rider. So this is how Mavic have based the rim. It's got to last 6 runs for the absolute hardest riders, which for anyone else out there is going to be perfectly adequate for normal use. Now it's being used currently by the Mondraker team, they're being used by Canyon, and of course the Scott World Cup team, so they are already on these wheels. Now something else that's kind of interesting about them is we've seen a move away from traditional hooked rim design to flat sidewalls. Now Mavic have actually gone back to a hooked design basically to increase tyre retention and to reduce burping. So they've really gone to town really to think about this from a downhill point of view. So it's a 28 spoke 3-cross design, again using those traditional type spokes on there. A few more shots on screen now. It's available in regular boost, so 148, and the new Super Boost 157. And it's got a 3-year no-nonsense warranty and also a crash replacement program. So this could well be one of the best options out there if you're a heavy hitter. Okay, something close to my heart now is the brand new Mondraker. I always go on about the bikes. Of course, I've had the Foxy 29 out for a while, so that's a 150, 160 trail bike. And it kind of blurs the grounds, being a 29er, between that and the Enduro Focus Dune, which is 27.5-inch wheels. Now, I think it's a bit of a problem because the bike was so good that a lot of racers ended up using this for Enduro, which was not its real intention to start with. It's supposed to be like a fast trail bike. That's always been what the Foxy is about. But because it's been so successful, and with the move to 29-inch wheels, so many people have loved the geometry on this bike. Mondraker have actually announced this, which is a beefed up version with more travel. So it's now 170 fork and 160mm out back. It's optimized, again, like the Yeti is, to use a coil shock or a large volume air can on there. So it's a bit more of a linear feeling back end on that. and it's got a much stronger rear end on it with adjustable chainstays on it. So the whole thing has been revised. Basically, the front end is fine, just to withstand the rigours of enduro racing. So this is it on the screen. I think you'll probably join me and think it's one of the nicer looking bikes out there. Two models available currently. They're on screen right now. There's the R and there's the RR. So the pricing for the R currently in the UK is $6,199 complete bike. And for the RR, it's $7,999. A few more images on screen just so you can see how svelte those frames look. Really nice. And of course, they've got the forward geometry on there. They've got adjustable geometry, so you can change the head angle via the cup system. They come with additional cups. You can also adjust the chainstay length between 440 and 450 with the supplied chip. So it's a very progressive bike. I think they look rad. Okay, next up's from Tag Metals. We've actually seen these at a few trade shows we've been to. So they've got an 800mm bar. It comes in 10, 20, 30 and 40mm rise options. It's running 5° up and 7° back. Very nice bar. It's got the cut marks on there. But interestingly, what they're trying to pitch this with is the stem, and the stem is the really cool thing. So these are available in various different sizes, 33, 35 and 45mm lengths in both 31/8 and 35mm clamp sizes. But the thing that's particularly cool is the speed align system. So there's a little slot just on the back here, and what they're basically trying to do is get fork manufacturers to hard anodize onto the fork steerers a white line so you can get perfect alignment every single time. And as far as pricing goes, in US dollars, the stem is $110 and the handlebars are $160. Okay, something quite cool I've just had in from Tooby. I haven't used this, but Henry's been badgering on about it, saying it's a pretty useful bit of kit. So it's essentially a CO2 cartridge holder and inflation unit, so you can store a cartridge on here so it doesn't rattle around in your bag. You've got a pressure system here so you can actually see what tyre pressure you've got, and you can marginally inflate it or you can let rip. It's also got a safety blow-off valve and of course the proper way you puncture the CO2 cartridge on there. Just useful if you're using CO2 cartridges out on the trail for any reason. You can actually get to the pressure you want to, not just guess and inflate. Simple and great, kind of like most Tooby inventions. They've got a little gadget and gizmo for most things out there, and it's really accurate as well. Check this out, going through some old school stuff I found in my place, which you're going to be able to see in my bike cave check. But look at this, an old AC crank. Now I've referred to these before. In fact, I think a couple of weeks ago on the show, me and Henry were looking at a GT Lobo and it had these very cranks on it with an MRP Ultra Speed chain guide. Now these days we have narrow wide chain rings, so the chain barely ever jumps off, and you do see some marginal chain protection. But back in the day you used to have the chain sandwiched between these alloy plates, basically so it couldn't jump off. And then you had the rollers at the bottom so the chain couldn't come off top and bottom. It looks quite clunky, it looks like there's a lot of it, but pretty much the MRP Ultra Speeds back in the day were the coolest looking chain guide, and definitely the best and the most reliable, and certainly the most copied as well. There were several options available aftermarket by unnamed brands knocking around, but unless it had the proper cartridge bearing roller wheels, it just wasn't the real deal. Very cool. I've also got a few other randoms here as well. Now look at this thing, an ozonic hammer stem. So it's kind of close to the forward geometry style stems we've seen today from Mondraker, but that is made from a single lump of billet aluminium. Slightly overbuilt, but that's the late 90s for you. That's kind of what we used to do back then. Pretty crazy. And another cool little progression story for you is all about the crud catcher. Now back in the day, when you didn't really have suspension forks on the front of a bike, spray used to come off the front wheel and hit you in the face. So what you used to do before any mudguards existed was cut a water bottle or something close to that and put it on your down tube to catch that spray. It didn't look very nice, it looked pretty ropey to be honest. And you definitely didn't want half an Evian bottle on the down tube of your bike. Cue the crud catcher. So this was designed by Pete Tompkins, who was a painter and decorator and avid mountain biker at the time. He was fed up with doing exactly that. So he bit the bullet, and as far as I know, he put a loan against his house to get the tooling made up to make these an official bike component. And this is one of the very first pre-production ones. You can see it's got melted holes in here where it's mounted, and that would fit on the bike. It became like a marked product, and he's made millions on these things because it's such a useful product. The later orientation of that looked like this, might be a little bit more familiar to you. So it did the same thing, but it's a lot longer, and it's got a rubber deformable nose, so as your fork crown moved, it wouldn't move the mudguard on your tube. They did them in black, they did them in white, they did them in clear. Quite cool looking, but of course, nowadays, things have changed a bit because there's a big gap between your tyre and the fork crown. So that spray that does come out here just goes back out the front and you ride into it and it goes onto your face. So they need to do fenders. And what Pete done was make one of these. So this is the same mudguard as you see Danny Hart riding in the World Cups. Again, it's got some of the typical traits that's seen from Crud products. It's got the deformable piece here that goes under the crown there. And essentially it fits with no tooling at all onto your bike. It has these O-rings here so it doesn't scratch. You don't need to keep reusing cable ties like you do with some other ones, and catches the spray. But pretty cool that he's gone from that to this over the years. There you go, another cool little rewind entry for you. See you next week. Okay, now usually this would be time for Bike Cave, but there's so much stuff crammed into this show. We'll have to double up next week, so make sure you take some shots of your Bike Cave and send them into the link just on the bottom of the screen here. It's also in the description, just above the comments underneath this video, and we'll do a double whammy next week. In the meantime, let's get into top mods. Now, I was out in Alpe d'Huez recently and just looking at some of the stuff people are doing to their bikes to make them survive that really punishing terrain out there. Some interesting little bodges. Some of them didn't look that good, but some of them worked quite well. First one on screen is someone that used basically roadie bar tape on his seat stays and chain stays of his bike. Completely covered them, so the bike's silent and he's not getting any chips in that. And more importantly, for those inevitable crashes, you're not going to take chunks out your frame. The good thing about using bar tape over other stuff is you can remove it afterwards and you can reuse it. It doesn't stick to the frame, so you don't need to recycle it or anything. You just keep it for the next trip. Of course, you probably don't want that stuff on your bike all the time so it doesn't look the best. But for a solution to protect your bike for an alpine holiday or a race like the Megavalanche, I think it's a really good solution. And of course, they do every colour under the sun, so you're going to be able to colour match to your bike. So at a glance, it doesn't even look any worse than usual. And the one on the screen, I think it looks really quite neat and tidy. Good job there. Now, on a slightly more amusing side of things, this is one that Blake spotted when I was up the top with him on Sunday morning just before his run. It must have been a French rider's bike because he's got a baguette on the down tube there. Baguette down tube armour. I think this is the funniest and actually probably quite a useful thing. For the big flying rocks, bread has got quite a good sort of protective nature to it. I'm sure it would disintegrate when it got covered in ice and snow though, but it does look pretty good, and sticking with a French baguette thing, I think it's pretty good. Now, interestingly, when Blake had finished his run, he was hanging out down at the finishing line, and the guy went to chat to them and took this mudguard off his bike. It's since been cleaned. Homemade carbon flexible mudguard. This is pretty cool, and here it is right now on screen.
It's from Germany, Augsburg. It's a guy who developed this, and no one knows how he does it.
Wow.
I just convinced him to cut this flexible carbon.
Flexible carbon. Perfect for mudguards, look at that.
Yeah.
Wow.
We just need someone to laser cut it, and then we go into production, and we have to coat it. On the inside it's rough, so it collects too much dirt.
Yeah.
But it
should be glossy.
Yeah, like this.
Yeah.
And we didn't have that much time. We had 1 week to get it done.
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
Now, a while back I mentioned, for the tech lovers out there, there's some new EVOC camera bags available on the market. They do like a hip pack and they do a rucksack format, so it blurs the line somewhere between a hydration pack and a proper camera bag. Check this out. So Tech of the Week this week is actually for the tech heads out there. So any of you budding vloggers and photographers out there might be interested in this. Now, I'm quite into my photography and I've had a bit of a struggle over the last few years because I've downsized all my equipment to mirrorless. So you know what that means, much smaller cameras, smaller bodies. And my conventional camera bag is just far too big now for going riding, and I really like carrying minimal stuff, so I've been on a search for some stuff, trying to find the right choice out there. Now, EVOC have just launched this pack, and I'm lucky enough to have just tried one out just to see what it's like. It does fit all my gear and it's pretty good. So if I just show you this, it looks like a conventional riding pack. It's got your pouch on the waist strap there, you've got a nice stretchy waist strap. It sits off your back. It can have a bladder on the inside. This really is just a normal riding pack, except the beauty is at the bottom here, you can actually fit in a fair amount of kit. So I've got my Fuji X-T3 camera in here with a long 5140 lens. I've also got a 1655 and I've got a fisheye, which is pretty much all I need for documenting when I'm out on the trails riding. pretty much like Jack behind the camera will be doing the videoing. I like to do the stills of the bikes, something I've always liked, the details. It's a really cool solution to not having to have an official camera bag. It kind of meets the middle of trail bags and camera bags. There's a whole bunch of different ones in the range. We did mention them on the Tech Show a few weeks back, but if you're a vlogger or a photographer, they're definitely worth looking at, and they're really good for protecting your gear. They're really solid bags. Well, there you go, they do a hip pack as well. They've got various different options, all focused around photography and vlogging. So if that's up your street, it could be a good option for you. If it's not, and there's other options out there, I'd love to know what you guys use. Let us know in the comments underneath. And I'd love to know what you can fit in it, what sort of size camera, spec, gear, anything like that. When you're in outdoors at the Megavalanche, you're always going to be sure to see some pretty crazy bikes and a lot of crazy French people racing down this insane mountain. But it's not often you get to see something quite as special as this. This is the Caminade Chilleasy, and it hails from Ilsetet near Perpignan in South France. Now this bike, as you probably noticed, is something very special looking. Firstly, it's a bit of a mullet setup. It's a titanium frame, which is very unusual in mountain biking, especially for a bike of this style. And it's also got an offset shock and a crazy concentric bearing system down here. Lucky for me, I managed to bump into Gio, who actually designed this bike. We're gonna have a little chat about it because there's quite a few special things taken into account. Okay, so now we've got Gio, the man behind this bike, and I've got to say, firstly, it looks amazing, but what I want to talk about before the design is titanium.
Yeah.
Why pick titanium for a bike, given it is quite an expensive metal to work with and time consuming? There's a lot of different things going on.
Definitely, we believe in titanium for building bike because we build a lot of gravel bike in our workshop in Perpignan in south of France, and we really feel the goods of titanium bike. Like it's really durable material in the time, you know, over the time it don't move. It give elasticity all over his long life, so it's pretty cool for that. Then it's really a light material, so it's pretty interesting to have something light and elastic too, and then for mountain biking, yeah, it's really durable. You don't have any paint job, you don't have any exposure, you know.
Of course, yeah, it stays looking like this
yeah,
forever.
Definitely. So yeah, we're really happy. In a workshop, we are useful to build some bike for a long time, you know. We don't have millennium bike we don't have a model for each year, you know.
So I've got a titanium frame I've had for many years, and the thing that drew me to titanium was the sort of compliance that you get in it. But I know you don't necessarily want that on a full suspension bike all the time, and I'm looking at these huge chainstays that are nearly the size of some road bike frame sets.
Definitely.
So I'm guessing you've taken this all into consideration.
That's the challenge of the bike. Have a vertical comfort given by the titanium frame, and have a sufficient stiffness bike if you want to go fast in curve and if you want to go fast on terrain like that, you know.
Yes.
So Breeze, the designer of the bike, knows that I'm really like to smash some corner, definitely. So he knows that he need to give me a chainstay really strong to have a bike really stiff, in fact, you know. So that's the challenge between the compromise between vertical comfort and lateral stiff.
Of course. And then looking at the frame here, so I can look at the effect of what the seat tube is.
Yeah, the curve.
And the curves around. I mean, it's incredible looking to have frame shape like this, to curve around to accommodate the offset shock here. Yeah. Now, why have you incorporated the offset design into this?
The asymmetric side of the bike is just we designed the cinematic, and then we just put the shock at this place to have the perfect ratio. So in first we just put the shock at this place to have the perfect ratio, really linear. We don't have a digressive curve at the end, you know, at the end of the travel. And then we designed the frame around the shock. So
yeah, so ultimate positioning.
Definitely,
yeah.
Definitely. So we are engineer. We don't have any designer in the band, you know. So we think like an engineer, and so we put the shock there, and then we design the frame around. And it's the good thing is really nice too.
Yeah, well, I mean, just looking at it, the beast, it looks incredible. It also looks pretty long. So how do we work with sizing on this? If a customer was going to buy one, do you have like small, mediums, larges?
No, definitely. We build the bike on the demand, so we are able to give each customer a bespoke bicycle tailor-made by ourselves. You know, so the future customer of this bike can choose head angle, reach, slack, offset fork, travel fork, and stuff like that. So this bike is built to me. So I choose the reach like 470. I choose head angle like 65.5 degrees, and yeah, I got an offset of 51 millimeters on my Hollins, and yeah, that's the good stuff of you know, a tailor-made bike, you know, of a frame builder, is that we can offer each customer a different bike.
Of course, yeah. Well, there you go. It's a pretty unique bike, pretty special piece of kit. We're going to put a link to their website in the description underneath this video, so have a click through and check them out. I think a fantastic company, a really special bike. Cheers, thanks for showing it to us. And there we go, there's another weekly GMBN Tech Show in the bag. Any comments, let us know in those comment section underneath the video. And for a couple more videos, click up here if you want to see the Mavic history. Their new ID 360 hub system is in there. That's what I referred to with the Deemax wheels. That tells you the entire story about them, where they came from and where they're going. And click down to the bottom there if you want to learn how to clean your bike if you live in an apartment. Perfect to keep the peace with the landlord or your better half. As always, don't forget to give us a huge thumbs up here at GMBN Tech, and share, subscribe, and love us. Cheers, guys.